Hi, I'm Paul with Twin Beans Coffee.
And I'm Sarah with Twin Beans Coffee. And today we are in our coffee roastery. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we got started in coffee roasting and about a couple of the machines that we used. So why did you start roasting?
Well, it was a fun idea. A friend of mine had purchased a 1-pound roaster and was going to make a business out of it, but then ended up moving to North Carolina. And I asked him, hey, you don't really want to move that to North Carolina, do you? And so he sold it to me, and I put it in my office. I had an extra room. I set it up in my office and started practicing with it, and then realized that I really enjoyed the flavor. I already knew I enjoyed the flavor, but I didn't know that I could really make it come alive like it was. And so that was what really was a big part of that, was also that it helped with my stomach, because darker roasted coffees were bothering my stomach. And so I was able to control that and use a little bit lighter roasts and a little bit better quality of bean. And I noticed that it didn't bother my stomach nearly as much. And from there, it just kind of grew as I played with new coffee beans and tried out new things.
So I started roasting when we were still in that little back office. You were still part of the financial industry, and we had started doing farmers market. You just didn't quite have that kind of time. Did not have time to do it all. So he trained me on the air roaster, that little tiny Sona Fresco. And that's just where we got started and where I fell in love with it. I loved the process. And the coffee itself was so different from anything I'd ever had before. I was very used to very dark roasts. And I'd always loved coffee, but I fell in love with specialty coffee here.
So there's two main types of roasters. The first, with an air roaster, is how I started. With air roasting, what you're doing is you're taking hot air, blowing it up through those beans. It creates a cyclone effect, and then those beans are cooked from the outside in, just like anything else. And the hot air circles around and blows the chaff on through where it's filtered on out. Then with a drum roaster, more of the drum contact on those beans is where the beans are cooked, but they still have a little bit of an airflow to help push out the chaff, push out the smoke, so you don't get a burnt taste in your beans. One of the advantages to a drum roaster is that you have a drum that you're heating, and it's an indirect contact, and so you don't have that hot air necessarily hitting your bean right off the bat and potentially scorching the outside. Same thing can happen because you can overheat that drum, and as the beans touch those drums, they can scorch as well. But one of the advantages to the drum is that you have less direct contact, and you can slow that process down of developing the flavors in your beans. Now, an interesting thing that's happened over time is we've realized that drum roasters have their limits as well. And there are some things that you can pull out with an air roaster. So we've purchased a second air roaster that we are using to develop some different profiles and different taste notes with our coffees.
Yeah, I love that we get to go back to air roasting where we started. Still doing the drum roasting, absolutely love it. We'll probably never stop. Just love it so much. But we are excited to kind of go back to where we began.
So one of the things we love about roasting coffee is that the coffees that are grown around the world have all different flavor notes depending on where their soil, what the soil is like, what the rainfall is like, what the climate is like, and then how the farmers process those beans. And different roasting styles and different roasting methods give us the ability to take those flavor notes and enhance those as much as possible so that people can have a really good experience drinking their different coffees.
Coffee roasting for me is an incredibly creative process. It is always changing. There's always something else you could be doing, something new to try. And for me, that is an art form. It is something that after so many years, I'm not bored with it. I am just excited, ecstatic every time we get to bring in new beans and I get something new to play with. And I think I get to share that with the customers we bring in here in the shop as well. And that is just such a joyful thing for me. I am Sarah with Twin Beans Coffee Company.
And I am Paul with Twin Beans Coffee Company. Thank you for watching.